Hello, this is Dr. Laura Markham, and this is our office hours from January 2022. You're joining us in progress. You just missed the very beginning of the first question.
If I like,
Sorry, Gada, I just realized I hadn't started the recording and I wanted to just, I apologize. Go ahead.
No problem.
Sure.
So I was saying like, okay, so I'm seeing progress, but I'm still struggling with getting them on their own without me having to ask to do like the basic things like make their bed or clean after themselves when they eat their snacks. For example, just pick the plate and get it back to the kitchen. Don't leave things on the table, things like that. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think of habit trackers? Like if I pick something I really want them to stick to and not overwhelm them with like a huge list, but just one or two things, and we track how they're doing it every day. Do you think this, do you see this as kind of a reward, which I know you're against, or do you think it's going to be helpful? Can I just, I'll ask another question if possible. It's related.
Okay.
Yeah, so also related to setting limits. So my 10-year-old would always like tell me, all my friends have the latest phone and you're not giving me the latest phone, and they'll think of me as a baby and that I'm not old enough. And you know, so I'm trying to make a balance here between understanding this is a struggle for him, and you know, I want to be empathetic and everything, but I'm also not convinced. So how do I strike that balance? Those are
actually two different questions, but I think I can answer both pretty quickly, which is about, so your kids are how old? 10 and
8.
10 and 8. Okay. So they're certainly old enough to, as you said, age appropriate tasks like cleaning up after themselves if they have a snack, you know, bringing their stuff to the kitchen or whatever. And when you say a habit tracker, what do you mean exactly?
Like, for example, today I made my bed. So, or I made my bed, and then we have the week, Sunday, Monday, to whatever. So, and then they would tick just to get themselves to, you know, to remind themselves of how they're doing on that. The same thing we would do as adults, you know, if you want to build a habit, so you would track how often you stick to it, something like that.
So the research shows that that gives us a little hit of dopamine. When we, you know, if you're trying to start meditating or exercising and you give yourself a little check for it, you get a little hit of dopamine because you're pursuing a goal. As we as humans pursue goals, we are encouraged to do that. Our physiology encourages us to do that by rewarding us when we think that we're taking a step toward a goal, right? So habit tracking is a great idea. And the only, and you said, you know, I'm against rewards. My concern with rewards is that it takes the intrinsic reward away when we give an extrinsic reward. So if we say, oh, good sharing, then they're not looking at their sibling or their playmate's face and seeing, oh, when I shared that, look at that look that was on my on the face of the person I shared with, and that made me feel so good inside that I want to share again, which is another thing about how we're designed physiologically. We're designed as communal, right? So we're designed when we are generous and we see that look on someone's face, it makes us want to do it again, right? But when we, the grown-ups, say, oh, good sharing, that supersedes that little feeling inside the belly. And so that's, and what we have seen is that when we do that, kids share less, right? So it's not that it's wrong to say good sharing or, you know, or to reward the kid. It's just, you know, or that I'm against it. It's just that it's not as effective if that's what we're going for, right? So you're trying to, I think it's actually fine to have kids work toward a goal and have something that's a good result of that goal, so that you could see as a reward, right? I think it's also fine to say, first, we're going to clean up from our snack and then we can play, right? So is that a reward? You know, that's just the when we do this, then we can do that. The when, then this is the way we structure our life, right? First we do the work, then we have the fun. So I'm not against rewards per se. It's just that
Mhm, mhm.
we have to
Yes, yes. No, and I agree. Like when I read about it, I totally get your point. It's just like punishment. Rewards and punishment are both
flip sides of the same
not
thing.
effective. Anyways, yes,
Right.
exactly.
It's a manipulation that acts as if we're only on this level, but we're much deeper as human beings than that.
Right.
Right. Okay. So getting your kids to clean up and stuff. I bet every single parent who's with us right now today or listening later is thinking, I'm waiting for the magic answer. How do we get them to clean up after themselves? Because they don't, even when they're 8 and 10. And they do gradually get better and better at it, but it's not like there's some magic wand that we wave. Really what works is the constant, us being the helpful habit tracker saying, oops, what else do we have to do here? That's right. Move your plate to the sink. Thank you. Right. So it is just a constant thing. I think they do learn from doing it eventually, and it does create a habit. So that's the answer to that part. The part about the phone, I think we as parents need to really have clarity about our values. So one question is, can we afford the phone? But there's a whole different question, which is, even if we could afford it, is that what we want to spend our money on? Do we think that's a good idea for our child? And, you know, there's all kinds of questions. I mean, that's the question you would ask about anything that you would buy for your child, from dance lessons to, you know, a drum set, right? But then there are the other questions about the specific thing. Do we want the noise of the drum set, you know, are we, right? And do we actually think it's a good idea for our child to have a phone at age 10? Are they by themselves where they would need a phone without us around, right? Like, are they walking to school by themselves or whatever? Is it a necessary thing for a kid? I think being clear about our values is really important. And that doesn't mean we're not empathic about, it's hard for you. The other kids already have this and you don't have it. And I bet you can't wait until you're 12 when you know, we've decided, your parents have decided that this is something that in our family happens around age 12. And so for your 12th birthday or whatever, that's what we're planning on. And you're 10 and I hear you really wish you could have one and the other kids have one. And that's really hard. You don't really mean that. If you meant it, you would get me a phone, right? I hear you. I hear you. And you wish I would just do that. I hear how much you wish I would get you a phone. And that's not something that we do in our family yet, right? So you can do both things. I think it's really important that we're willing to have them be mad at us about it, right? But that we really listen also and not get defensive about it and say, it's hard for you. I hear it. I hear that kids are teasing you and saying you're a baby. Do you think you're a baby? No. And you know, what else can you do to feel better about yourself when the kids say that or do that? And talking about how your child can handle the social awkwardness that comes from being different in some way because your family has chosen to have different values.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, our next question is from Zelda. Zelda, you want to unmute yourself? I don't see Zelda. Zelda, are you trying to unmute yourself? I see Zelda now. There you go. You're unmuted. Hi.
Hi. I'm from New Zealand.
Aha, welcome.
Welcome. And I really appreciate everything that you've done. It's amazing. My question is kind of, how do I handle my big emotions?
Well, isn't that the $1 million question? Thank you for asking. You know, our spotlight in January, and we've done this all 3 Januaries that this membership has existed, at our spotlight be on self-regulation. And our reason is that it's something that we all have to revisit all the time, right? Because it's just, it's the work of a lifetime for most of us, right? To learn how to self-regulate. And how you do it is, honestly, it's just putting one foot in front of the other to, in the moment, stop yourself. And there are all kinds of pieces to it, as you can see from the spotlight. There's the getting yourself enough support, right? Because, if you're running on empty, you can't be emotionally generous and you'll find yourself yelling, right? So what kind of support? Well, what kind of support do you need? You need to get enough sleep. Would it help you to work out? Would it help you to have a little time to yourself? What are the things that would be helpful to you? Meditation has been proven to help us recover more quickly. That's called vagal tone. Help us recover more quickly when we're upset, so we can calm down. So when you do find yourself escalating, if you can notice it, you can stop yourself, take a breath, right? And say, okay, let's try a do-over here. I was starting to raise my voice, right? You're going to have the big feelings. I think there's no way to go through human existence without big feelings. I just don't think there's a way to do it. And, people joke, well, Mother Teresa could do that. Mother Teresa was not, she had no children, right? So
Right.
those of us who choose to have children, there's no way to go through child raising without having some big emotions. Children act childish. That's their job, right? We're going to have big emotions. And also, I have learned that one of the most valuable gifts our children give us is they help us to grow.
Right.
They're wonderful just as they are in themselves. That's a gift to be with them, but they also help us grow. And so we are going to grow partly by noticing what triggers us with our kids, right? When you have that big emotion, stop, drop your agenda, take a breath, and notice. I'm not telling you to squash the emotion and stuff it. I'm saying notice, oh, I'm getting really upset about this, but this is just my kid. I don't have to get upset about this. I'm getting triggered because, and sometimes you know, and sometimes you don't know. Maybe you know because your kid's being insolent or defiant. And when you were a child, if you were insolent or defiant, you would have been slapped across the room, maybe. Or maybe it's a big feeling because you're scared, because your kid's doing something that you're worried that this means your kid will always be like that, right?
I'm scared. I'm scared because my kids had just gone to their father. He abandoned us 2 years ago and went to Russia. And it was a nightmare situation. And this is the first time he's had them. And I'm terrified.
He hid them?
No, he's looked after them.
First time.
Sorry.
Okay, so he's
sorry, Kiwi accent. It's the first time he's had them since he came back. He's been back 6 months. And I'm terrified that they're not going to want to come home to me because I haven't been a good enough mum. Oh, I'm sorry. And I know they're going to be sad leaving their dad because they loved him, and I feel guilty that he left because of me, and I wasn't enough, and the boys lost their dad because of me, and now I'm worried that they're going to come home. I know my kids love me, but I've struggled with yelling at them, and I've been doing all your courses and I'm getting better, but I'm a long way from being good. And I was abandoned when I was 3, and I picked a man who did the same thing to my little boys. My youngest was 3 and my oldest was 6 when this happened. And when they come home, I have to deal with their emotions and not fall apart with their emotion when I've got my emotions.
Yes. Well, no, I'm so
sorry.
Well, first of all, no apologies are necessary. That we're all struggling with whatever issues we have, and everybody has their own issues. And those issues always are part of our parenting. We couldn't do it otherwise, right? We're human beings. We bring our issues from our own childhoods with us. And I hear you're really frightened. Do you have support to like on a daily basis, someone you talk to every week, ways to support yourself so that you can stay grounded, because you're under a lot of pressure?
Yeah, I have friends that I can ring, but most of my friends are very stable. They've had happy marriages, and they don't, I love them and they love me, but they don't get it because they're not as damaged as I am.
First of all, you're not damaged. You are wounded. You have a wound. that still hurts and still needs attention. And you, I think, deserve more support. I think it's great you have your friends. And I also think you need some support from a professional, some sort of counseling support or coaching support. I think that would be really helpful to you, because it's not something you should have to deal with on your own. It's just too much. It's too big. And you're on the front lines. When your boys are done with their visit with their dad, they are coming back to you. You're their mom, they're coming back to you. And yes, they're going to have a lot of big feelings. So I'm hoping you have some support, that you can prepare yourself, that you can work through some of your feelings now in advance, to when the boys come back, you can open your heart to whatever feelings they have. And they may have a lot of confusion, a lot of sadness to leave their dad, some anger at you, because that's what happens in divorces. Kids are angry because they lose what they had and they don't understand the reason for it. It doesn't mean we did the wrong thing getting a divorce. It means they're angry and they're sad and they're confused, and they need us to be their safe container for those feelings. So I think that we have people in our coach training who might be able to work with you if you don't have another counselor who you're working with. And you could email Candace after this call and we'll see what we can do to get you set up, okay?
Thank you.
All right. And you take care of you. What you need from yourself, you don't have to be perfect. What you need from yourself is love and compassion and forgiveness, self-forgiveness. And you're going to mess up. You're going to mess up and raise your voice. Catch it as quickly as you can. Calm yourself down. Go to your boys, apologize, have a do-over, and keep working at it. You're on the right track. You've been working really hard at it. That's why you've gotten better. And there's more work to do. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You will see the results.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today.
Sorry, I made you cry.
I'm sending lots of love to you.
I'm receiving it. Thank you.
Okay, Candace, who's our next question? And by the way, I want to say to everybody, I see I was going to look at the chat to see who our next question was, and I see in the chat here an outpouring of love and support here for Zelda. And I just wanted to say thank you, everybody. I love the support that you all offer each other on the chat in our office hours. Thank you so much for taking good care of each other. Okay, who's our next question, Candace?
We have Catherine Crotty and then Megan Howcraft.
Okay, Catherine, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for everything you do. I'm calling from Australia.
Welcome.
Hi. I have two lovely little girls, a just turned 3-year-old and just turned 18-month-old. And it's my 18-month-old I'm a bit concerned about. She's so much more agitated and needy for the breast all the time, like still 8 times a day. I'm still happy to breastfeed her. I was looking to wean, but I tried it. It was just, it's not going to happen. I just wondered if there could have been any trauma from when she couldn't get a good feed for 9 months. I saw a lactation consultant from the very beginning, and she could never latch deep enough to get a really good feed. And I could always tell she was agitated, trying to drink. And it wasn't until 9 months that a posterior tongue tie was found after a cranial osteopath. And then we went to this tongue tie specialist, and then then we had it snipped at 9 months, which upset me because she was more aware of what was going on. So I don't know if she's like that because of that experience and because she was agitated feeding, I was agitated, or if it's just because she's wanting the breast so much now. Every time I sit down, she'll want to crawl on me. Every time she wants to have a sleep, she wants to sleep on my breast. Every time I sit her down for a meal, she'll push it away, booby, booby. So I don't know if it's because of that or if because she's on me so much that I then just don't really want to have energy to play with her. I have a demanding 3-year-old as well that wants my attention. Or if it's because a sister can sometimes have a bit of power over. So I just want to know your thoughts there.
So, Catherine, we don't know, first of all, whether she was traumatized. I guess I would say if we were infants and imagine being an infant and trying to get food, if we were hungry and never felt like we could get enough food, that could be traumatizing, absolutely. But I'm not hearing you say her pediatrician said she was underweight.
She's been in the 3rd percentile, but she's always steadily gained. She's been very slow to gain, but always has been going up the curve.
Okay, so 3rd percentile, so very low, very, very light weight. So it's entirely possible that she was hungry sometimes and frustrated that she didn't feel like she could get enough food. That's possible. I think it's also hard to be, it's hard to be 18 months old. 18 months old, you understand so much more and you want to communicate and you don't have the words to do it. And life is full of frustrations because, you're always getting things taken away from you and not allowed to have things happen. And your 3-year-old sister pushes you down or grabs something from you and your mom's tired and you climb on her like constantly because you want your mom and she's tired sometimes and, sometimes gets fed up. So, it's hard to be 18 months old also. So there is that. I guess the question is what's to be done here about that.
Yes.
Right. And it is normal for an 18-month-old to nurse. It is normal for them to like to nurse a lot. However, they're starting to get to the point where they use nursing to avoid feeling. So they fall down and get hurt. And of course, the first thing they want to do is nurse. And it would probably, honestly, I think it would be better for them to cry and to feel that pain. And on the other hand, nature has sort of designed them to want to go nurse, right? So there's no right answer here. My recommendation is that when possible, that you stall nursing and allow the child to feel the feelings, even just for a moment, like, oh, you fell. Oh, yes, I know. Ouch, that hurts. Yes, we'll nurse in just a minute. Let me see that. Oh, that hurts, right? So that they actually cry and show you the boo-boo as opposed to just going to nurse. And then, yes, of course, sit down and nurse her. What you're describing, though, if it's all day long, you might want to put some limits around it and say, okay, we'll nurse first thing in the morning, we'll nurse last thing at night, we'll nurse before nap time, but we're not going to nurse just all the time. So that was 3 times I just mentioned. And maybe, we nurse before bath time. Maybe there are other times also that you want to have in your description here of nursing, but not just all the time, right? Not, nope, we already nursed this morning. Now we're not going to nurse until whenever. And she will probably, this, by the way, is the first step of weaning. Weaning doesn't happen overnight. And there is an article on weaning that's comprehensive on the AHA Parenting website that talks about doing this, that you start to put boundaries around when the toddler can nurse. And you could even just, you could have it a lot of times, like, we don't nurse in the morning and we nurse first thing when you wake up, but then we don't nurse again until whenever, like after lunch when it's nap time. But then all afternoon is fine because they're just too cranky in the afternoon when it gets their dinner time, whatever. But the point is that you put boundaries around it and there will be some crying about it. She will absolutely cry about
She
it.
throws herself to the floor, has a big tantrum.
And you can hold her and say, I know you wish you could. We'll nurse and tell her when it's going to happen. I would say start very small, like just put it off a little bit, because she's only 18 months old. She doesn't understand what it means. I mean, waiting 2 hours is not possible, right? So doing, we're gonna nurse in just a minute. The timer's gonna go, but just to like stretch it out, you can do something like that.
Okay.
And that will help her. She will probably cry a lot, and that it will help her actually to empty any backpack of trauma there. But I also want to make sure that she's never hungry. That would be really important. So
Yeah.
does she still nurse at night?
Yes, around 3 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the morning.
So she goes to sleep at, I don't know what, 8 or 9, and wakes up again at 3. So she probably
Yeah.
got hungry then. That'd be my hunch. So normally an 18-month-old, I would say start with night weaning, but I'm not going to say that here. I think she actually may, going for a long stretch, she may get hungry. She will retrain her body to go without food at night, but I don't know that she's quite there yet. And I think you want to keep her, it's pretty normal. It's not true for all babies or toddlers, but it's pretty normal for an 18-month-old to get the majority of their calories actually from breast milk, as opposed to,
Okay.
there are many of them that don't really want to eat a lot of food, and do want to nurse. So since she has the tongue tie history, how that could be impacting her now would be, if she's hungry, it will bring all that up again. So
Okay.
I think it would be important to not let her be hungry. Does she eat anything? Like when you sit down at the table with her, you said
Some days she's fine. She'll just pick at things.
great. And give her as many different foods as she'll sample. Give her as much food as she'll eat. And you can, if she likes her food, that's great. And you can say, we'll nurse later. We're going to have this delicious food now. And you can really try to get her interested in food. I think that's a terrific idea. And that way she'll start to learn, oh, my belly feels full when I eat. It's not just breast milk that's going to fill me up. And I think that would be important also.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Who's next?
Megan Howcraft.
Okay, Megan, you can unmute yourself.
Hi there. Thanks for taking this. I'm doing your coach training as well. So I was listening to the audio on sibling rivalry, and it got me thinking about some stuff we're struggling with my kids. So I have a almost 10-year-old and an almost 6-year-old, a boy and a girl, and they are great friends. They love each other. They get along well. They play. They like each other's personality. They also fight like cats and dogs as well. My son, who's the older one, he has anxiety and most likely ADHD as well. He's been a high needs kid since the day he was born, super sensitive, very, over the top alarm system, struggles with impulse control. We've been doing peaceful parenting since he's been about 4 or 5. So for a long time, and we've seen massive improvements. So when they fight, it's less physical now, although that does still happen. But sometimes when, they get in a altercation, he will scream in my daughter's face or, yell or scare her or say something really unkind. He immediately is remorseful, very remorseful. He sometimes is still thinking about it and feeling awful about it like hours and days later. He's great at trying to make repairs. So we've always taught them, we don't force our kids to apologize, but how we've taught them to make a repair is to say, is there anything I can do to help you? What can I do to help you? Or just to offer something. Can I clean this up for you? So they don't have to be put on the spot to come up with something, when they've just been hurt. The problem is that this happens so regularly that my daughter is not wanting to accept the repair, which I don't blame her, because as I've explained to my son, sometimes when you apologize over and over to somebody and then you do the same thing a few hours later, the apology doesn't mean very much. And so I don't want to force her to accept an apology that she's not ready to accept. I'm very conscious of raising a girl in today's society, and I want her to not feel like it's up to her to make someone else feel better who's just hurt her. But my son feels awful, and he feels like a bad kid, and he feels like he can't make things right with her. So it's almost like getting to the point of why bother? Why bother trying to make a repair, because she doesn't want to accept it. So my question is, how do I, have it so that he can make a genuine repair that she will be maybe willing to accept, so they both leave the situation feeling better, and not both feeling awful?
Great question. I think the answer is timing, right? At that moment when he has just screamed in her face, and now he's saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And she says, well, that doesn't make me feel better, right? It doesn't at that moment. And she obviously, we're obviously not going to pressure her to change how she feels, right? And also because he did the same thing 2 days ago, right? So I think at that point, your answer as the role model, as the mom, is, it sounds like you still feel pretty bad about your brother yelling in your face. It sounds like hearing him apologize is not really making you feel better. And saying to him, I'm so glad that you want to make things better with your sister, honey. I see that you're really sorry that you yelled in her face, and I see that you really want to make things better with her. Seems like right now she's still pretty upset. I think we need to all take a break. We need to all take a break. And then I think turning to her again, sweetie, when you're ready to, when you feel a little better and you think you might be open to a repair from your brother, let's talk about it then. And give her a little hug and give him a little hug and say to him, thanks so much for trying, and she'll be ready later. And I wouldn't ask her when she'll be ready. She doesn't know when she'll be ready, but I would check in with her. They're going to go about what they're going to do. You might even just find them laughing together in an hour, right? But it might be that they'll go their separate ways, and then nothing, she'll come back to you, or she'll come back to him, and she might come back to you and say, I'm still pretty mad, right?
Yeah.
Or you might go to her and say, I noticed, I haven't, checked in with you. I wanted to check in with you and see what's going on. And she might say, I'm still pretty mad. I don't like it that he does that to me. And you can say, I think your brother needs to hear that from you. I think it's hard for him in those moments when he gets really mad, but I think, he needs to hear from you how much it hurts you when he does that to you, and you want some help to tell him, and you go with her to him and you say, let's all sit down for a minute. And then you say to your son, using his name, your sister has something that she wants to tell you. And if she says, you tell him, you say, I'm right here to help you. You can tell him. And she'll say, I don't like it when you yell at me like that. And I don't care that you apologize. I hate it when you yell at me like that. I don't want you to do it anymore. And he might say, I can't help it. And she'll say, but I don't like it. I don't want to. I mean, she might even say, I hate it when you do that. Or I hate you when you do it. Or I don't want to be your sister. It makes me not want to play with you. There's going to, there's going to be some repercussion to him doing this. And you say, you're the bridge. You say, so you're saying to your sister that you can't help it sometimes, but I see it really bothers you that she feels so hurt and upset. And you say to her, and I hear you telling your brother that you don't care that he's apologizing, that you really wanted to stop doing it. Is that right? And she says, yes, I wanted to stop yelling in my face. And you say, you hear what your sister is saying? And he'll be, yeah, but I can't help it. Right? That's the powerlessness that you referred to. Yeah. And you say, I hear you that it's really hard. It's a really hard thing to do, but I also know how much you love your sister. And I wonder what we could do in those moments. And I think we could work on it together. I think I can support you and we could work on it together. And you could use some of the stuff from the membership, and some of the stuff from your coach training about how to help him to handle his anger. You could brainstorm with him what he could do when he's angry. Stop, drop, and breathe. All of the tools that we use in here for the adults, there are variations of them that work for kids, right? And I think he could even do, you know, a respectful voice chart, right? That he works towards some sort of a reward. And it could not just be for him, it could be for the whole family, the reward, right? But that it's his job to work toward it by not having these episodes where he yells at her.
I've been wondering if that might be something, because we've been doing this for so long, and we had a big talk about it today because there was an incident this morning, and he's very, very oppositional and very resistant. He goes to play therapy, and we work on like tons of stuff. We have journals and all this stuff about anger, and he has like a million tools, and he doesn't want to use them. And we talked about it today, and he's so he's really able to speak eloquently to it. And he says, I don't want to have to do those things. I wish I was just normal. I wish I didn't have a brain like this. Your brain isn't like this. Fern's brain, that's his sister, isn't like this. I just don't want to have to do the work, you know?
And we can absolutely validate that, acknowledge that, empathize with that. It's not fair. Yeah. It's not fair that some people have to work so hard to self-regulate. And there are people on this call who are thinking that about themselves at this moment, right? And it's not fair that he has to. And you can validate that, and you can say, and you get some good things out of this. You get that race car brain. You get that exciting, you know, charismatic, full of ideas self, you know? And so you know, the whole package of you is pretty great. But it does mean you have to learn to manage this about yourself. And other people have other things they need to learn to manage. Some people are much more anxious than you are and have lots of anxiety to manage, you know, and a lot of fears, and can't do, give an example, something that he does readily, like get in an elevator or whatever. And, you know, everybody has, all of us have to learn to manage ourselves, all of us. And all of us lose our tempers sometimes. And it may be something you struggle with more than a lot of us, but actually it will be something you will use for the rest of your life. And we are, you know, you will be working on this now and getting better at it in time to use this in your relationships so that you'll have better friendships and better, you know, better relationships for the rest of your life. And, you know, no one is excused from having something that they need to manage in themselves or to work on, all of us. And you could share something that you work on in you. And I would just circle back to what's motivating him to do this is his sister, is that she's one of the most important people in his life. And he doesn't want to be hurting her, and he's hearing from her how it hurts.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. The timing thing is that's a big piece. That's so great, because it is, you know, it's like when we make a mistake and we want to do a redo right away, you know, you start yelling and you catch yourself. It's gotten great with him. It's to that point where he'll do something and go, "Ooh, I wish I hadn't done that." And then to not get that, but I'm apologizing, but you're not accepting it, then it sets off a whole other anger and rage kind of thing. So I think being able to calm that, take a moment, have some time, and, you know, so that she's better able to accept it when she actually feels like it, and he can also chill out.
Exactly. Yeah. Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and our next question.
From Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany. You're still muted.
Oh,
there you go.
Hi. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to cry, but I just want to thank you I followed you for about a decade, and I just am really grateful for all that you've done for me, my family. Anyway, sorry.
I'm so glad. I'm honored.
Yeah, you're just amazing. I always joke that you're the mom I never had. So thank you. Okay, so just a little background. I grew up in a really high demand religion. I live in a place where this religion is very, like, everybody is this religion, 99%. And sorry. All my siblings and my mom and all my neighbors, And my son recently told me that he's gay, and which is like not okay in my religion. So my question is, and there are like a lot of really good resources here that I've tapped into, but my main question is, well, I have two. One, he really wants to wear dresses to school, and he won't. He just is kind of becoming obsessed. I'm like, you can wear them at home, you know? And I just said, school, I hear you, like you want to wear dresses to school. I think for me, I'm really concerned he will be so bullied.
Yeah.
And I just don't want that for him, but I don't know how to handle it. So I've told him, like, I love you no matter what. I think it's great you love dresses. Dresses aren't for school. We need to learn at school, and it could be distracting. So just your thoughts on that. How would you handle this specifically?
Tiffany, how old is your son?
He's 8.
8. Okay. So kids may well know by the time they're 8 whether they are sexually attracted to people of the same or of the opposite sex. It might be that he is in fact gay. It may also be body dysphoria, that he doesn't identify as a boy, right? That he actually identifies as a girl. And our body parts, we're learning more and more that our body parts are not where our gender identification comes from. It comes from somewhere deeper inside, who we feel ourselves to be. And kids can know very early, 3 and 4 and 5, kids can talk about, I'm not really that gender. So, it wouldn't be surprising. I don't know if that's what's going on with him or not.
Yeah.
But you expressed it as him feeling like he's gay. In either case, he might well want to wear a dress.
Yeah.
And by the way, lots of boys wear dresses who grow up to be straight and have no gender dysmorphia or who identify as a straight guy,
Yeah.
lots of boys who wear dresses. And I've known some who wore dresses as children and pink slippers and all that's, little high heels,
Yeah.
and who grew up to be, straight guys who are in relationships with women and are very happy with that. So I want to make sure that everybody listening doesn't hear assumptions. I think every child deserves the right to be supported, to be who they are, no matter what that is. And I wouldn't jump to assumptions or conclusions about, the fact that someone wears a dress means anything in particular. But your son has gone a step further than wearing a dress. He says that he is gay. So he obviously has done some thinking about this. I think your family, the weight of your religion is it's your family and your religion and then society at large, right? You've got 3 different pressure cookers that are all that you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you feel the pressure of all of that. There are many parents who have come from religious backgrounds where gayness was not accepted, from Orthodox Jews to very to Christians who are for however they might describe their Christianity, and some of them have had kids who they've needed to support while their kids explored their sexual orientation and their gender identification. And they've written about it online, and there are videos online of them talking about it and talking about their journeys. And I would encourage you to seek out support, because I think you need it. I think that you want to be there for your son, because what we've learned, what the research shows, is that kids who get support from their parents they can grapple with the hardest things, and even when society seems to be against them, they can grapple with it and they can be fine. And so, but they have to have the support of their parents. If they don't have that, then they can become severely depressed and to the point where it's dangerous. So you want to be able to support him. And I do encourage you to find support. And I don't have resources off the top of my head, but I know that there would be support in the Facebook group, the large group. There are other people who've dealt with
Okay.
it. There have been discussions on the group before. Other people have dealt with it. I would say, talking to your son about wearing a dress to school specifically, I would start I would continue the conversation by asking him. And by the way, I did write an article about this that's on the website that
Okay.
is about how to support kids who have gender issues. There's it's under the concern, the way the website is broken down, there's the ages and there's some basic topics, and then there's concerns. And under concerns, one of the concerns is talking to kids about sex and gender. And
Okay.
in that, there's a bunch of articles linked to, and one of them is this article.
Okay.
So that article does talk about the issue more generally, but just very specifically for you, I would ask him, I would first of all empathize. So you love wearing dresses at home, I know, and you really would like to wear a dress at school. What do you think would be different if you did that? Well, people would know who I really am. Yeah, we all want people to know who we really are. We want to be seen for who we are and respected for that. And I totally get that. I wonder what it would be like. Well, how do you think the other kids would respond? How do you think the teacher would respond? Has anybody else, do any of the other guys wear dresses ever? Do you think anybody would have a hard time with it? Do you think you get teased? Do you think you get bullied? I would really ask, and I would really listen, and you don't have to have this all as one conversation. This could be over a period of time. And you could also suggest smaller things, smaller steps that would, there are various things that aren't as all out as wearing a dress, but that might be, a flowered shirt or a pink shirt, or, starting to express himself in ways that are more challenging of gender norms, but without putting himself quite so much out on a limb. And observe what happens, right? Observe what happens. Observe whether he gets teased. Observe if he's comfortable. And I would absolutely brainstorm with him before he does anything like that. What would you do if somebody teased you? What would you do if someone said something unkind? Could you imagine someone saying something unkind? What might they say? And what could you answer to that? Or would you need to answer? What would you do? And if you felt bad inside, because it would feel like an attack, right? If you felt bad inside, how might you respond? How might you care for yourself so that in the face of an attack, you're able to recoup your good feeling, right? So all of those questions, I think, will take you further. At some point, he's going to be, you're going to have to leave the decision to him at some point. The school might have a restriction. I don't know what the school has. And maybe there are other kids who are already wearing dresses. We don't know that, right? Yeah. I know plenty of schools, small schools, Waldorf schools, private schools, schools in New York City, where sure enough, lots of the boys wear dresses, and everybody wears everything on an ongoing basis, and they go back and forth, and it's no big deal, right? But that may not be the case where you are. It may not be the case at his school. So I think I would have those discussions, and see how far you get on that. But at some point, he's going to need to stand up for who he is. And, you're going to need to support that and support him.
Okay, that's really helpful. Okay, the one other piece, can I ask one more part?
I know there are a lot of people with their hands up, so if it's short and related.
Okay. So I read the book, Just Barely, Giving the Love That Heals. I think you had recommended that book. It was really great. And it was talking about just at the end, how important belief in religion is. And
this is the book by Hendricks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess I just feel really conflicted, because now I feel and maybe my son isn't gay. You're right. Maybe he's just exploring, and but there are other things I found out about the religion I was raised in that I'm just I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So I'd say I'm in kind of a faith crisis as well. And it's I guess I'm wondering, how can I raise my kids like without like a belief in God or like how I've been raised? I don't know.
I am a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
And that doesn't stop me from extending great love and appreciation and admiration to your son, right? So
Yeah.
there are many spiritual paths that would
Yeah.
be completely supportive of your son. And
Yeah.
there are many, by the way, I mentioned Christianity and Judaism. There are many paths within Christianity and Judaism that would be supportive of your son. I don't know what your religion is, but I'm just saying there are many paths that I believe that it's all one existence, which is just
Yeah.
another for God, right? It's
Yeah.
all one connected, intelligent, loving something holding us all, right? And humans have found ways to create religions that they have felt support them. And those of us who are born into certain religions sometimes stay in them. Sometimes we leave and find something that works better for us. And
Yeah.
it sounds to me like you're wanting to find something that works better for you. And
Yeah.
I encourage you to be true to yourself, to be true to what works for you. And that doesn't mean you have to live without spirituality, doesn't mean you have to live without God if that's what you want. And it means,
Yeah.
and also it means it's fine to live without God and spirituality if that's what works for you, right?
Yeah.
It is fine. These are deep questions that each individual has to decide what works for them. And I've known many people who came out of very intensive faith backgrounds who needed to walk away from it because it did not work for them. And that meant they didn't have any spirituality or faith practice forever in some cases, or for a very long time in some other cases. And these are you're a grown up now. You get to decide what works for you. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And right? We all need to do our best to give our children support that will support them. And your son sounds like he's got a big need for support around who he is. And you don't want, yes, do I believe that faith can be sustaining and more than sustaining, can be our reason for being? Yes, if that's who you are and that's what you want. Does that mean it's true for everybody? No, everybody's different. And your son, it may be really low on his list.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Oh, this is helpful.
All right.
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, who is next here?
Lizette.
Lizette.
Hi, I'm in the dark here. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Laura.
Hi,
I've been
Lizette.
working with your practicing peaceful parenting for like 8-9 years now. And, thank you so much for changing our lives. With that, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. So my husband and I have been pretty good at not yelling. We don't really yell. When we started this whole journey, we did the whole calendars and, I can show you weeks of not yelling. And, we were able to get this far in this. However, any type of tone or change in my voice, my children now interpret it as yelling.
Okay.
And there's times when we're like, we're not yelling, we're just, a little frustrated right now, or we're feeling these things. And I take fault in it too, because I know my husband and I grew up in like a house where my mother's just yelled and we were hit. So I also made it like this really bad thing. And I think I did that too much though in my house. And my kids are now afraid of teachers who yell and coaches who yell. And I just wanted to find a way where I could direct them in a way that, this has happens and some other people yell and we all have these feelings. And they're just so scared of this feeling now. And I think I kind of took a wrong turn in that area.
I would sit down and have this conversation. They're 8 and 10, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would sit down and have this conversation with them, Lizette. I think saying, you know, I would like to use a respectful voice all the time. I would like to be unflappable, but I'm human, and there will be times I get frustrated and raise my voice, and I'm going to keep working on this. I'm not going to, you don't deserve to be yelled at ever. And I'm not going to be yelling. And there will be times I get frustrated and say, all right, everybody, let's, you know, or whatever. And I don't want you to feel like that, that you can't cope with that, right? That scares you. And really the reason I'm bringing this up is that you've mentioned the coach was yelling or the teacher was yelling, and that scared you. And you know, it's scary when grown-ups yell. It is scary for kids when grown-ups yell. Tell me more about when the coach yelled, and then they tell you and you say, wow, that sounds like it was scary. Do you think the other kids were scared too? You know, it may be that everybody was scared. It may be that it was a reasonable thing to be scared, right? You can say, yeah, I hear you. And we can't control the coach. What we can control is our reaction to the coach yelling. It sounds like when the coach yelled, you thought it was an emergency. Do you think it was really an emergency when the coach yelled? So I think helping our children to stay grounded in the reality of, in the integrity of their own internal compass, right? But also the reality of the world. So like, yes, the coach was yelling and that was upsetting, but it didn't mean it was an emergency. The coach was not going to start smacking the kids. The coach was pretty mad, and, you know, we needed to pay attention to that. We kids, you know, needed to pay attention to the coach yelling because the coach had a reason to be yelling. And, you know, I mean, I hope your kids are not in a situation where they're routinely getting yelled at by coaches and teachers, right? I hope.
I mean, like, he definitely has a teacher, my one son, who yells, and we already discuss things with the district. But I also feel like because we don't yell so much, they have become so sensitive to people who yell.
I would actually say that that's a good thing. I mean, my children noticed every time an adult raised their voice.
Yeah, that's how my
children didn't feel disabled by that, right? They didn't get scared and think it was the end of the world. They were sometimes they took umbrage. They were a little outraged, right? Like they would come home and say to me, I can't believe that the teacher treated that other kid this way. They shouldn't be allowed to do that, right, Mom? So they would do, you know, my kids would do that. I think when we raise kids without yelling at them, they have a different standard for human interaction. They know that that's no way to treat another person.
Yes, and
so
they do. They know it's not right.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a good thing, actually. And so I think the fact that your kids notice that and comment on it to you is great. The only thing that would bother me about it would be if they are disabled by it, if they're scared by it.
And they are. Like, my little one doesn't want to go to school because he's so afraid she's going to yell.
So that sounds like this teacher might yell a lot. So instead of telling the kid to grow a thicker hide, you said you've already talked to the district about it?
Yes.
It sounds to me like this is a sort of a serious thing, that this teacher yells a lot.
I tried to change classrooms from the beginning, but like it doesn't seem to bother the other kids as much as it bothers my son in a way that he knows. And then I don't want to fuel it, because I also want to be like, it's not right. I mean, I'm also a teacher. I don't yell. And his teacher yells, and we say, you know, my husband's also a teacher. He doesn't yell. And we talk about these type of things with our children, like, you know, it's not okay. But they just seem to be so like anxious and scared by it.
So anytime a child's anxious and scared of anything, we want to understand that and acknowledge it and empathize with it and offer the understanding that that was a scary experience. And we want to then empower them. This is what we do with any kind of fear. With fear, we always acknowledge it. We always empathize with it. It sounds like that was really scary. Wow, I wonder how the kid who was getting yelled at felt, or maybe all the kids getting yelled at. That sounds really scary. And even to the point of like, how did that feel in your body when you were feeling it? Where in your body did you feel it? What did it make you feel like doing? Made me feel like running out of the room. It made me feel like hiding under my desk. Yeah, that sounds like it was really scary. I wonder next time this happens, because we have talked to the teacher and we've talked to the district, and we've I'm a teacher and I would never do this in a classroom, but that's the way this teacher is, and this is your teacher. So next time it happens, I wonder what you could do so that you could feel stronger and better, even though the teacher's yelling. What could you do? Because I wonder, when it happened and you had those bad feelings in your body, I wonder if you also had a thought in your mind like, this is scary. I wonder what will happen next. Or, I wonder if the teacher hates me or whatever. You can ask your child, even an 8-year-old would probably be able to tell you what thought they might be having at that moment. And you can say, it sounds like you jumped to a conclusion here. You interpreted the teacher's yelling as meaning she hated you, or you interpreted the teacher's yelling as meaning that none of the kids would get to go off for recess or whatever else that, or that it was an emergency, or that somebody would get hit next, or whatever your child's thought was. That's not actually true, right? Because when we have a big feeling, it's connected to a thought, an interpretation of the situation, right? And your children interpret situations where there's yelling as meaning that they're dangerous.
Yeah,
What
they
we
do.
want to help your child see is they're not dangerous. We want to acknowledge their feelings, but help them see that it's not actually. If somebody yells on the subway when I'm there, I'm going to move away from them in case they're about to toss me onto the tracks, right? So
Yeah.
you need to pay attention when someone's yelling. But once you've assessed the danger and you've moved yourself to safety, you don't need to keep belaboring that point. Your child in the classroom can't move themselves to safety externally, but they can, in their mind, assess the danger, and then move themselves to safety in the sense of saying they can reassure themselves that they're safe.
And like the teacher and the district said, well, he's not yelling at him. And I'm like, well, he's still being affected by the atmosphere of the classroom.
Absolutely. And I've heard many times over the years from parents that children will come home and say, the teacher really yelled at this other kid, and the other kid felt so terrible, and I felt so terrible, and I started to cry.
Yeah.
They saw it as a situation where they were compromised by not protecting another child who was in danger. That's how they're seeing it. I don't think we want to say to our children, oh, don't worry, this is normal behavior. I think we want to say, no wonder you were upset. It's terrible to watch someone else get yelled at. You're not responsible for stopping that because you can't really, because you're the child in this classroom with this teacher. But what you can do is notice what's going on in your body, notice the thoughts you're having, and do something to take care of you in that moment. You can say, yeah, it's not actually dangerous. Nothing more is going to happen here. This child is having a really hard time and I feel terrible for them, but I'll go give them smile at them later, or squeeze their hand, or tell them I'm sorry it happened, or whatever later. So you can help them to feel better later, that other child. And you can do something right now to reassure yourself that you're not in danger and that you're safe, and that you can, ask them what would help them to feel better at that moment. Often kids can, if they have a squeezy ball, or if they can do some tapping, or if they can do this, do some, which is good for the vagus nerve, something that will help them, or even just to hold themselves if they don't draw attention to themselves, something that will. And actually, wouldn't it be amazing if a teacher was yelling and looked out and saw all the children in the class doing this to themselves? The teacher might get a message that this was inappropriate behavior.
I know it's been a rough road, and we're just trying to see, like, every day, like, all right, it's close to the end of the year, we try to get them out with all the COVID restrictions because of the class numbers and everything, but like trying to just let him know that he needs to find some way inside to get through the day.
But we can give him some ideas about that. We're not just saying, oh, you're on your own to get through it during the day, right? We're saying, because he's very tenderhearted.
Yes.
That's a good thing to protect. That sensitivity is part of his superpower in the world and for the rest of his life. We don't need him growing a coat of armor over that. We need to say, you can we talked about what we need to manage. He needs to learn, it's a superpower, but he does need to learn to manage it. And because he will see many painful things. And our job as witnesses in life is to see those painful things and to be willing to be there with the people who are suffering the painful things to whatever degree we can sit with it, and to help ourselves also to be present for them by taking care of us, right? So I think brainstorming with him about ways he can do that would probably be really helpful.
And it's just, I automatically as a mom, the guilt was like, because I don't yell enough. That you
That's the way you introduced it. And I think, isn't it interesting what we've gotten to here? Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
I know. I mean, it's definitely good talking about it, but I'll definitely work on those things with him. Thank you so much. Sorry I'm in the dark. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, who's next?
Mariana.
Mariana.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Okay. Hi, Dr. Laura. Here is what I need to ask. It relates to thumb sucking. My son is 4. It's actually his birthday today, so he's 4 years old exactly. I breastfed him until he was 16 months old. And he wasn't sucking his thumb yet. He never used a dummy or anything. He never had a bottle either. It just never did that. Just went straight to straws. So he has a little teddy, a bunny, Benjamin bunny, and another one that he sleeps with. And I basically, when I started training him to sleep on his own, I would put Benny in his bed so he has something to cuddle up with. It's a tiny thing as well. And I don't remember the exact age when he started sucking his thumb, but the point is he's still sucking his thumb, and it's getting worse. And at the moment,
it's getting worse.
Yes, at the moment, he even has a little bit of almost like his skin is almost like a wound around his mouth, and so is the skin around his thumb. And I try to speak to him, but I have to say I'm not being consistent. I do have some trigger around the thumb sucking, and I don't know what that is. So sometimes I'm trying to be understanding and think along the lines of, well, it's his body. He should be allowed to do what he needs to do. But at other times I'm like, well, but his teeth are getting crooked. And, he looks ridiculous. And he doesn't really, but, it's one thing to see a baby suck his thumb, and it's another thing seeing a 4-year-old suck his thumb. And he does do it repeatedly. But somehow my observation is that it is linked to holding Benny. So sometimes he will, when I think he's highly sensitive. So when something overwhelms him, like loud noise or too much of something, he'll ask for Benny, and that's his permission to start sucking his thumb. And I try to reduce it in various ways, like, okay, when we're in the car, put Benny on the seat, don't hold him, because as soon as he grabs him, he starts sucking his thumb. It's almost like I don't know, there's some association there.
Sure.
So I'm lost as to what to do, and because I'm being so inconsistent, it's not getting anywhere.
So we have a few different pieces of this puzzle. One is you're triggered about it, and when we're triggered about something, it always makes it worse. A second thing is many 4-year-olds suck their thumbs, and it is a way to manage our feelings, our anxiety, right? So it's very common. So has a dentist told you that he needs to stop sucking his thumb?
I haven't even taken him to a dentist, but I can see that, the lower teeth are getting sort of inwards and the upper ones outwards. So
yeah. Dentists in the United States do discourage by the age of 4 when kids are sucking their thumb, which is, as I say, very common. dentists at that point always discourage it. They always say, oh, it's going to impact their teeth. And I'm not a dentist, so I can't really speak to that, but I do know that that is what dentists will say. So I think you're probably right that it does impact his teeth. When kids suck their thumbs, it's because that's how they comfort themselves. If they have lots of anxiety, they're going to use it more. So I would suggest that you work on a few fronts at once. One is that you work on your own trigger about this. Do some work exploring what your trigger is about this and what it means. If my son sucks his thumb, what does that mean? You know, about me as a mother, about him as a child, whatever. Do some work on yourself. Second thing is start working on his anxiety. So anxiety is just another form of fear, right? And obviously the first thing in my arsenal is always laughter for fear or anxiety. So you want to get him laughing as much as possible, right? And then you want to also give him ways to comfort himself that are not about either Benny or his thumb, since those two things seem to be inextricably linked. Other ways that he can comfort himself. And can he come to you and get you to play with him and hug him and rock him and, you know, play, you know, have little games that you get him laughing and that you grab him up and cover him with kisses and rock him like a baby and all, you know, anything like that, that's going to sort of switch from his impulse to go suck something, right, to instead be, you know, engaging with you and getting that need met in a different way, right? And then you can put containers around it. I don't know if you were on the call when we were talking earlier about the beginning of weaning, and you were talking about weaning from his, the beginning of weaning, you start to put a container around the times that person is allowed to do it. At night, he's probably going to be sucking his thumb. There's no way around that. But during the day, you could have a rule that he's not sucking his thumb during the day. But I wouldn't just start it as a rule. I would start by, you know, as you said, we don't do it in the car. We don't do it at school. We don't, you know, don't do it at meals. You know, come up with the times that it is okay and the times it isn't okay, and start and be very consistent about it. And those, and also, I think Benny, you know, think of Benny as a pacifier. You know, it's like some parents would be trying to wean the child off the pacifier. They wouldn't give the child the pacifier unless it was okay for them to be sucking on it. I think when you give him Benny, that's like the signal that he's allowed to suck on it. So Benny's just for bedtime. Benny's just for, you know, and maybe there are other times besides bedtime when he's allowed to have Benny and to suck, and that's fine. But because I think you would want to always, with these things, it's best to go slow. And see what comes up and what you're dealing with. And I'm sure he's still gonna have times he's gonna cry, wishing he could have Benny and suck his thumb. And you're gonna be saying, oh, sweetie, not right now. Let's be together. And you have to be prepared to step in and be fully present with him to help him through those tough moments. But he will learn that there are other ways to get through those tough moments, and he doesn't need to be sucking on his thumb or to have Benny even to get through them.
I would say Benny is much more than a pacifier to him, because he takes him everywhere. The anxiety may have been produced by lots of things, but it doesn't help that his father and I are separated. We're going through a divorce. He does see his father pretty much every day, but he does feel obviously the tension. And I have to say, at the moment, I'm trying to focus on being a good parent, and I really, you know, I've separated for a reason, and I want nothing to do with that other person at the moment. I find it very difficult to pretend otherwise. So it is obvious to him that there is that tension, that there is the dislike. So he does have reasons for anxiety. That's the point. But Benny,
I'm going to stop you there.
Sure.
So first of all, when we separate from the parent, the other parent of our child, it is really important that we do not express anything negative about that other person, because the
Mhm.
child takes that as a reflection on them.
I do not express anything negative.
Okay.
I simply don't want to.
I don't blame you. I'm not
Yeah,
telling
I don't want to be around him.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
expressing it so with your child, it can be all about validation of his feelings. You're excited about seeing your dad, I know, but you don't have to express excitement about seeing his dad, right?
Yes.
But you also don't want to say anything negative. So it's true that he might have some anxiety about, I mean, he has a loss, right? He lost
Mhm.
he lost what he had, what his family was. He's lost that. He will adjust, but he has lost that. That means he has grief. And he also may have some fear.
Mhm.
About what else could I lose? Or maybe one of my parents would just completely disappear or whatever.
Mhm.
Some fear, right? That would be anxiety. So anytime he's asked to not express a feeling, or he's not allowed to show you his anger or his
Mhm.
grief about
Mhm.
course, then that could actually lead to anxiety. When we
Mhm.
express feelings, it leads to anxiety for sure. So that could be happening. And so I would just say, how much are you roughhousing with him?
Not much.
Every day, twice a day, and you will see that the need to suck will start to diminish.
Mhm. I will try. I just want to, sorry, to just complete the thought on Benny. He goes everywhere with Benny.
Okay.
Sleeps with him, takes him to kindergarten. Everywhere he goes, when he visits his father, he goes with Benny. There was a point when he's very introverted, and at his previous nursery, he didn't have really any friends. Or he told me he didn't. He didn't feel like well, his friends were the teachers, but not the children. His only friend was Benny.
So do not take Benny away from him. Benny needs to go to his father's with him for sure.
Mhm.
Benny is his security blanket, right? He
Totally.
needs, so, but you can still have times when he's at home where he doesn't have Benny. If Benny's presence means that he will automatically suck at that point,
Mhm.
then you can put some boundaries around that. But
Mhm.
I would not take Benny away for long periods of time. Or
Mhm.
not when he's away from you. If you're with him, it's not a problem, because
Right.
Benny's second to you. Benny's not at the
Okay.
top of this list.
What is the point at which I should worry, or I should take some other measures? So let's see if we try everything, and in 6 months we're still pretty much where we are today.
I don't think you will be. If you roughhouse with him twice a day, you'll be somewhere else in 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be surprised.
Okay, we'll give it a try. No, it's not my natural propensity, but I'll do it.
Good luck. Let us know
Thank
how.
you very much, Dr. Laura.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, would we?
I have not made a queue. I was not sure how many.
Time we have. I think
Yeah.
we have time for one more question.
Sure. Yvonne, I don't believe you've asked a question before.
Hi there. Good to see you. Thank you. Okay, a bit surprised because I was like, oh, okay, so and
Sorry.
some others
Go
in the
ahead.
queue.
A moment.
My question is about enhancing frustration tolerance. So when Megan described her son, that yeah, as some others wrote it, yeah, we've got some trouble with or difficulties with that as well. My second son, yeah, has a very, very low frustration tolerance. So just as an example, like tonight, he just yelled at his brother, and his brother yelled back, like the younger one. The younger one is 2 years younger. And like he was immediately offended by his brother yelling at him, although he started yelling. And that is just one of many examples. And he's 6 years old.
Okay.
He's the second one of 4 boys, and yes, I think he has some trouble with ADHD. Someone I talked with is thinking about him being highly skilled. I don't know. We are in the process of diagnosing him. And over-the-top alarm system just was what Megan said as well. And anxiety, a lot of anxiety also. We do rough housing.
Good.
He's also very articulate about talking about his feelings and his needs.
Great.
That is, yeah, he is, yeah, remorseful a lot. Like he's like, one of his big difficulties, in addition to yelling, is hitting. And he really doesn't want to, but it's like kind of automatic. And we do a lot. Like I taught him so many different things, and he knows it. And I think there is some progress about this yelling thing, because he starts to tell us, yeah, mommy, I yelled at him because otherwise I would have hit him. So this is progress.
Actually.
But still, I was just wondering if you've got some more ideas about enhancing frustration tolerance, because I think that's one of the parts that is the root, like in addition to anxiety and things like that, I know, but yeah, some tools.
So he is actually doing great for a 6-year-old with this special challenge. He is, and everything I said about Megan's son, who's 10, everything I said about him is actually applicable here with your son. He needs to want to stop himself. So when he yells at his younger brother and his brother yells back, because a 4-year-old is going to yell back if a 6-year-old yells at him, and then he gets offended, you step it, he's only 6, right? He doesn't have a big prefrontal cortex yet. He's still building it. And you as the adult step in and say, you don't like it that he yelled at you, right? To the 6-year-old. You say, and it seems like you didn't like it that your brother yelled at you to begin with, right? You say to the 4-year-old, no, that's right. He yelled at me, and that's why I yelled at you. And you help him see what happened. You help him see the unfolding of it was that he actually started the yelling, if he hasn't noticed yet. Now, maybe he already noticed it.
The problem is to get in between, like
while it's going on.
Yeah, it's just so much, like he's so full of energy, like just when he was a baby, and like from the beginning on, like so much energy.
So you're right. When there's a fight between 2 kids, the trick is always to get between them, and that is always the challenge, right? Where you move in between them and you say, you are yelling and you are yelling, and both of you want the other one to stop yelling. Let's all take a breath. Let's all calm down. We're going to sort this out. So what you do with siblings is you create safety so they don't have to keep escalating. Where you acknowledge you're yelling, you don't like it that he's yelling at you, and you don't like it that he's yelling at you. You have to acknowledge both of their positions, right? And you create safety so that they don't have to keep yelling. They can settle down, and then you can work it out, right? But that is always the first thing you do with siblings. And you're right. It is the hard trick, is to get in between them then. And I would say for frustration tolerance, the way, it's just another form of self-discipline. So the way self-discipline works, we know in the brain, is that we don't take an action we want to take. Like he wants to yell at his brother, let's say, and he doesn't take that action, right? And when every single time we're building the neural pathways for the prefrontal cortex to rein in the limbic system. That's what's going on. We're building neural pathways which he will use for the rest of his life to control himself. It will keep him from yelling at his coach in high school. It'll keep him from yelling at his wife eventually, right? I mean, it's critical and especially, you know, he's only 6, but one of the reasons that kids who are sensitive and anxious and have some ADHD tendencies, one of the reasons they have a harder time with friends is impulse control, right? And so every single time he reins that in and stops himself, he's building that impulse control, right? But what would cause him to do it? He has to be motivated to do it. That's why when I spoke to Megan, I was all about emphasizing the daughter's response, that the daughter didn't want this anymore. She was done with this, right? And I think for you, again, doing that kind of a conversation with him and anyone he's yelled at. I mean, the great news is he's not hitting anymore mostly, right? That's great.
At home, but in kindergarten. And I have to admit, I'm really afraid of him starting school after kindergarten, because I'm like, oh gosh.
So this is the thing, the hitting in kindergarten, because they will have no patience for it. They'll have no tolerance for it, but it does mean he doesn't feel safe. So you're going to want to talk to him about how that he is safe in kindergarten and how he can feel safe. And you're going to want to talk to the teacher about his need to bond with her or him, whoever the kindergarten teacher is. He needs to bond with the teacher to feel safe. He needs to feel that person's got his back, or he won't feel safe. And if he doesn't feel safe, he's going to hit. There's also an article on the AHA Parenting website about when kids hit at preschool, and maybe it's when kids bite at preschool actually, and how the preschool can intervene to stop it simply by shadowing the kid and helping the kid know that somebody else has their back. And when somebody grabs the toy or looks at them funny or whatever they do, that there's an adult there to help them and they don't have to hit or bite at that moment. And so really, really great for him to know that he has some backup, because your poor little guy, he's only 6. He's doing
I know, but I'm talking my mouth dry, like I'm talking to his I try to make them understand him, and I like 2 or 3 years now, but they are just they're like just punishing him. You go to the bank. Is it bank? I don't know. Like you go to the seat.
It's not working.
And you be quiet and you just stay here. You know.
So unfortunately, it's not working. You could buy them a copy of Becky Bailey's, one of her good books about the classroom. She basically teaches what I teach, except she teaches it in schools. She's wonderful. And I hear you that they're not listening. And is it the same school he'll be in next year?
No, this is it's separated here. I'm not sure about your wording in the US, like school. I'm not sure about this, but for me, it's like it's kindergarten, and then it's really like a real school with lessons and like having to be still and no playing anymore and things like that. And that's a totally different institution.
School can be really too much for kids. Luckily, he's already 6 in kindy, so that's great that he'll be a little older by the time he gets into 1st grade and maybe a little better able to handle it. Both the sitting still and focusing, and also the not losing.
Yeah, that's why we waited for 1 more year.
Very smart move. And the more you can help him to bond with the teacher in any place he is, the better off he will be about being able to manage this. And it does sound like at home he's already making strides, because he feels like you are in his corner. He's got backup, right? And I think as you work with him to hear what his siblings are saying, or to hear what you're saying about when he lost it and screamed at you or whatever, to hear what you say, that will motivate him. If this can be done without shaming him, but just for him to hear how it affects other people, right? As we talked about when I was talking earlier with Megan, I think that will help him to more and more do this at home, to rein in those impulses. And every time he does, it'll give him more ability to do it at school. And as I said, for the rest of his life.
Yeah, what I'm struggling with is exactly to find this fine line between making him aware of how it is for others, how they feel when he does this, and not shaming.
Yes, but you notice when we talked when we were talking to Megan about her son and daughter, there was no
Yeah.
shaming there. It was simply that the younger child was saying to the other older child who had screamed in her face that she, how she felt about it. And the parent helped do that. I mean, help the child to say what she needed to say, right? There's no shame there. And I think that if you can be very clear with him, when he does something like scream at you, at the moment that he says it, you can validate, you are so upset about this. This isn't what you wanted to have happen. You're really mad. You want me to see how mad you are. I hear you. And you never need to yell at me, sweetheart. I'll always listen. You never need to yell at me. And then later you can say to him, when you yell at me like that, it feels like you're attacking me. And I know you didn't mean to. I know you were just really mad that I said you couldn't do whatever. And it's not okay to yell at me that way. I work really hard not to yell at you. It's not okay to yell at me. Okay? And he'll be like, I'll try. But there's no shame in that, right? You're not saying he's bad. You can say, I know it's really hard. I know when you feel that way, it's really hard. Okay?
Thank you.
And I don't know how long you've been in the membership, but a while, right?
Oh no, is it September when I started with the coach training?
Okay. So you do have, as in the coach training, you have access to the stuff on helping kids with anger. So you can also use all of those things with him, and that should be pretty helpful. Yes, I know I
got that on my list.
your name from the coach training, not from the membership. That's why. Nice to see you. Okay,
you.
You're welcome. So it's an hour and a half, which is when we stop. And I know we haven't gotten to all the questions. Was there anything that needed to be clarified in the chat, or we pretty much got to everything, and we managed to do what we needed in the chat? Because I haven't been able to follow it, obviously. Yeah, Candace, do you think? Nothing left.
Nothing really left. And we have a question about if there's any books that you would recommend about children and self-regulation.
Well, there are obviously many books on kids and ADHD. That's a great question. I think that the way kids learn to self-regulate is that their parent self-regulates. That's number one. So we have to be setting the example. Number two, we meet their needs, meaning they know they have backup, right? So that's obviously, what we teach. And we meet their needs also. So we meet their needs in the moment so that they don't have to escalate, right? We're giving them backup. But also we meet their needs, this is a third one, in a more comprehensive way. So we meet their need for laughter, for instance. So they're not, they don't have a lot of pent up tension, and that they're going to hit less and yell less and whatever. They're going to be in better shape emotionally, for instance, if they don't have a full backpack. So we meet their needs that way. That's really about preventive maintenance. And then I would say the kind of teaching that we talk about all the time in the membership when we go through different spotlights, and the kind of teaching we talk about on these calls that we've just demonstrated a few examples of, like with the conversation about Megan's kids. So we're teaching kids those skills on an ongoing basis, but they first have to have our role modeling, and they have to know that their needs are going to get met. Those would always be the first things. There are books for parents about kids self-regulation, I think. Becky Bailey is the one for schools that's great on it. Mona Delahook also is, her background is in schools, although her newest book is for parents. She's basically going to tell you what you're already learning here, but I love Mona. I think she's great. And what she will say is we have to see from the child's point of view that they're not feeling safe, and we have to restore their safety. And, that's what we talk about here. So I would say books for kids on self-regulation, we have a whole big page of books on emotional intelligence on the AHA Parenting website. And I would say those are a great place to start with younger kids. And there's some for older kids as well that are about emotional intelligence. And once kids know what they're feeling, it's a lot easier for them to manage how they're behaving. So the books on emotional intelligence for kids are also going to be really helpful to them. I hope that answers that. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming to office hours and for your wonderful questions and for your courage in asking them, because these are big, hard questions to ask that take some courage. And thank you for your support for each other in the chat. And most of all, thank you for the hard work you're doing in your homes every single day. Your children are so lucky to have you as their parent. So unmute yourselves and say goodbye, and see each other in the Facebook group.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Bye.
See you next month.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.